the biggest task, I think. As far as the mechanism and most of the circuitry, it's the same as any other of our slimline beta machines that we've had in the past. They've pretty well kept the same mechanical tape path, the loading mechanism, and so on. There are no major changes there at all. There are some, which we'll discuss as we go along. And I'll point out, some of the pitfalls or the things to watch for that we feel may be a problem in the future for you. They haven't been to date, of course, but due to at least one of the mechanical changes, there may be a problem. However, as we get into that, we'll discuss the strengths and weaknesses of the system. My own experience with the machine is quite different from what I've read in the brochure. I don't know if you've all seen the sales information on SuperBeta or not. Probably not. Technicians never get to see this stuff, do they? Most of them. But if you read everything in here, you come away with a feeling that, man, will this thing ever do a lot of things? And they're not lying. It will do a lot of things, but it tends to lead a person to believe it'll do things which it's not capable of doing. And quite often we'll get calls saying, my brochure says that it should do such and such a thing, and it really doesn't do it that way. There's something wrong with it. Get it fixed. And when we investigate that, we find, well, no, the machine isn't really capable of doing it to that degree of accuracy. And when we question the people in Toronto about this and say, well, how come? Here we expected this thing to do this. And it does it, but, with limitations. And their answer is, well, this is not an industrial editing machine. Therefore, do not expect the same degree of accuracy you will with a machine that costs 4 times the price. And it'll make you wonder why they call it SuperBeta at all when you really get into it. Happily, the people that have them in the field report that they've never seen anything better in their lives, and it's really fantastic, and they're really happy with it, and so on, and that's all that really counts. And of course, chances are we'll probably start comparing it a little bit to the new 8mm system, which this is not a seminar on 8mm, but it lends itself naturally to compare with the 8mm system that you'll all soon be involved with, if you aren't already involved. I know you're not authorized, but you may be involved anyway. Isn't that right, John? So, on page 5, okay, correction, right off the top. Actually not a correction, but an elaboration. 3rd paragraph down. The sections of video recorded on the tape can be quickly scanned with the shuttle function. Those of you that have worked with the machine know what we mean by the shuttle function, the little dial that allows you to move 1 frame at a time, or twice the speed, or 1 times the speed, or whatever. We'll get into that a little more later on. It says individual editing points can be quickly and easily chosen with the jog dial. And that's very true. You can find the spot that you want the edit to start or stop quite quickly that way. And then once the decisions have been made, the microcomputer system in the machine takes over in order to perform the editing. And the unit can even control a second Betamax unit for precise editing. The way it does that, of course, is through its control output jack at the back, which you loop through to the control input jack in another machine. Further on, we'll talk about that in a little more detail. The part that I don't like is the next sentence, which says the control circuit also provides for easy animation. And they go on to say that this means that by combining a series of short recordings of still images with small changes in each section, an appearance of movement can be created. Okay, Dave, have you tried that? And what's your report?
the picture jumps because it records maybe 5 frames at a time, records for a second or so, then it backs up, and then every time it moves, the picture will appear to jump. It's not clean.
Yeah. All right. Animation in the industrial market, commercial market, means that you can take one frame and record it, and then move on to another frame and record it, one frame at a time, like they do in film. Not so with this machine. This machine it needs time to go from pause to synced up playback or synced up record, or whichever way you want to use it. So it's not possible to do any actual editing, I would say, within good clean edits within maybe 20 to 30 frames or so. And if you wanted dependable edits each time. So that, to me, is not animation. This is just recording several sections of information. And maybe they cover themselves by this term they use here, with small changes in each section, which it would indicate that they mean not one frame, but a number of frames, a section. But they still use the term animation, which is not correct. It isn't true animation. It's just the assembling of several short sections, more easily than they could before. There's the key. More easily than we could on some of our other models. It doesn't mean it does it the way the commercial people like it done. And, okay, 2 reasons why our machines can't do that. One is the cost. These are produced at a certain cost. Therefore, they had to limit the accuracy of the machine and the things it would do to fit within that cost bracket. The second reason is that there are similar machines on the market for our industrial division which are more accurate and will do more of these things the way a commercial person would want to do them, but it costs 3 to 4 times more money. So you could see from a marketing point of view that if this did what the industrial machine did, it would kind of screw up that market. So it's a compromise situation. You'll find in the field that the salesmen tend to get over-enthusiastic about the model. They read this, and they hear our salespeople tell them how good a unit it is and all these things it will do, but they've never actually done it themselves. They transfer that information on to someone who's fairly knowledgeable. He buys it, he takes it home, and then you get a phone call saying, how come it doesn't do all these things? And you have to know.
Actually, you can blame the salesman for misinforming the public, because he's got the misinformation out of the brochure, and then the salespeople who feeds him the information. He is only part of the link.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what about your salesman?
Well, I'm referring to them as well, yes. Yeah. No, we're guilty. Unfortunately, the bottom line is it falls upon the service technician to sort it out, because people see these limitations as false, and faults are what we're concerned about, and we have to fix them. And it's really fun trying to fix something that isn't a fault, because it's there and that's the way it's supposed to be. As I recommended yesterday, talk your employers into letting you have one of these machines for a while, so you can try all these things out at your leisure at home. Try editing, try recording in the various modes and so on. And that's where you'll really learn the limitations of the machine. And the strengths too. You know, there's no doubt it's the best machine we've ever put out, but it's not perfect. Okay, that's one source of problem that we've had. Okay, I don't know what this looks like. Is that more or less in focus back there?
I can show you in it. You wouldn't believe it. Absolutely unbelievable. But that's what a purist.
For those of you that weren't here yesterday, there's one set up on the side here with an XBR receiver, and whenever you get a chance, you can go up and work with it, look at it, fool around with it, whatever. There is a demonstration tape coming up shortly, which is again made by the salespeople, but you enjoy that sort of thing anyway. This picture doesn't show too much.
Also, ask this about 1 megahertz.
Yeah, all right. you anticipated my next discussion. So I'll answer your question in the context of what we're going to look at now. Our machines went through a progression of changes. Our spectrum of the original Betamax was, as we all know, we take our original video signal and we screw it up so that we get 688 kilohertz color carrier, and then we move our luminance signal over here between 3.6 and 4.8 megahertz to give us 1.2 megahertz deviation. But it's centered approximately here. But anyway, the bottom should say sync tip here and peak white here. But we also have a lower sideband. We do not have a higher sideband. All our machines roll off very, very, very quickly right after 4.8. And you know, one could say, well, really, we have all the luminance information we want between here and there. Why don't we just roll this son of a gun off too and not have any sidebands? The answer to that is we rely on some sideband information to give us detail in the luminance circuitry. So our original Beta machines, going way back, had no interference with this lower sideband, and along with our higher writing speed on our tapes, which the VHS people made such great fuss about the fact that we couldn't get as much recording on our tape than they could, and therefore ours was inferior. The reason was that we were writing faster, and therefore the higher the speed that we were writing our information on our tape with gave us better detail, but they never mentioned that. We used to mention it, they didn't mention it. So along came Beta Hi-Fi, and with the Beta Hi-Fi audio information, we had to place that information between the color information and the luminance lower sideband. So really this should have a third sort of description here, but what happened is we rolled this off sooner in order to make room for our audio FM carriers in here, and that reduced the FM lower sideband. So if we depend on this for a lot of the detail in our Y signal and we reduce it, what are we going to get? We're going to get less detail or a less sharp picture, which is the case. This is true. If you really put a multi-burst signal into one of our early models of Beta and record it and play it back, then you do the same thing with one of our Beta Hi-Fi machines in the Beta Hi-Fi mode, you will see a substantial reduction in the detail. And the main reason is that we lost some of our lower sideband. So that took care of our Beta Hi-Fi machines. Then our SuperBeta came along and they said, well, you know, we have to put back this information that we took away, and the only way we can do that without affecting either color or our audio carriers, which are not affected, by the way, is to shift our deviation, our luminance information, further along the spectrum. And they did that. They shifted it 800 kilohertz. Now somebody will say, well, yeah, well, they did that with the Beta Hi-Fi too. They shifted it 400 kilohertz in this direction, which, you know, theoretically gave us our lower sideband back again, but in practice it didn't. Not enough of it. So they moved it another 400 kilohertz into the high end of the spectrum, which extended the lower sideband approximately back to where it was originally, although these are not drawn to scale. So the test that I've made on the machine, and my colleagues have made, is that when we put in the color burst into the SuperBeta machine, we get back approximately the same kind of signal we had originally up here.
Nothing better than the single Beta with a high.
Now, you know, the engineers will argue that, no, actually you've got a lot more and all that sort of thing, but I can just go by what I see. Eh?
Well, what is not, if the carrier frequency is high, you get better high frequency response.
I'm sorry, say
If
again?
you got a higher carrier frequency, you got a better high frequency response on it.
Well, that's part of the, that's part of the argument too, is that as you go up in frequency, you get better high frequency response and so on. But the end result, as far as I'm concerned, is gained by extending the lower sideband from where we chopped it off. And that takes us back to approximately the type of thing we had here. Now, you got to keep in mind that there are other things that have happened to SuperBeta besides that. Not only this have they changed, but this was the first step. This was the thing that they had to do first to get this back. And perhaps that doesn't make the biggest difference. There are other circuits that we look at that make a change.
I want to mention over the difference in detail too, playing back the SuperBeta picture when you switch beta hi-fi on and off.
Even in SuperBeta?
Yeah, remember when we did that test with multiverse, and we found that by doing a recording in SuperBeta with the beta hi-fi off, we got the best picture.
Yeah, okay.
It extended the lowest sideband again.
Yeah, Andy was just pointing out that in some of the testing we've done, that if you take your SuperBeta machine and you turn off your beta hi-fi, you still get a further extended lower sideband and still more detail. So I guess the bottom line is, if you want the best possible picture, you put your SuperBeta machine on without the beta hi-fi audio. I can't think of any reason why you'd want to do that, but you know, it just explains a little more as to what's happening here. Now, why doesn't Beta Movie give you a better picture because it shifts it over here? I can't really answer that question because I don't...
More higher is about 200 kilohertz more than this. It's about 1 megahertz more, 5.10.
It must be related to the way the Beta Movie does its recording, which is a different system.
Yeah, the time compressed.
Yeah. There are other factors involved than just moving the center frequency.
But the 550 also time compressed. That is a SuperBeta performance.
Sort of.
Yeah, they get 300 lines resolution. I mean,
Sort of.
What do you call it? You have 300 lines. They call SuperBeta.
Well, SuperBeta, or not SuperBeta, but Beta Movie, I guess you all realize is not going to be around too much longer.
Yeah.
I mean, who would want to buy a Super or a Beta
I was
Movie?
just curious about that.
8 millimeter, yeah. But you're right. The model, the BMC 550, does have a switch that's hidden down underneath, which will extend this to so-called give you SuperBeta recording in the... But they never say anything about it very much. I don't know if you noticed that in the literature. The sales literature, they don't make a big thing about it. Anyway, we're getting off the track. Any questions concerning this change then? All right, what are the consequences of moving our luminance further along the frequency spectrum here? Are there any consequences? Well, I mean, sure, we get a better picture, but what happens if you make a recording in the SuperBeta position on this machine and you play it back in an ordinary machine that is designed...
Overmodulation.
Overmodulation.
You
Yeah.
get over-modulation.
There's a problem exists already. A lot of people complain that really. That I can not.
Yeah.
If we call them SuperBeta, it's probably understand it got the quite thick sometimes, you know, the superimposed.
Okay.
But the other way around is okay, right?
Yeah. The other one is not wrong.
Not exactly. I'll talk about that in a minute, too.
The SuperBeta switch on.
If you record on SuperBeta, this shift may cause, on an ordinary machine, an ordinary beta machine, to overmodulate or to give the impression of overmodulation, which is, and I don't have an example of it unfortunately, black streaking after a sharp edge. You'd really see that if there happens to be a very bright object in the picture material. It really streaks like crazy. And
That's new cut quite old.
Also, the contrast is washed out.
Yeah.
Smeary.
yeah, well, okay, the horizontal streaking is what we're getting the most complaints about. So, in the fine print, in the owner's manual, it says that if you are playing back or if you're making a recording on your SuperBeta machine to play back on somebody else's machine that isn't SuperBeta, turn off the SuperBeta switch.
Lucky that you know, the switch there, we have a customer.
I know, it's another switch they have to worry about. Turn it off if you're going to play it back on another machine. Only use SuperBeta recordings on a machine that will be played back on a SuperBeta machine.
What about playing back non-SuperBeta tapes on the SuperBeta machine?
Okay.
Switch off also. That's right.
The explanation as to why this is going to have an effect will come later, but let's talk about that. If you take an ordinary tape, of which if you go out and rent one or whatever, or get one from your friend, it's not going to be SuperBeta. You play it back on the SuperBeta machine with the SuperBeta switch on. Chances are you will not see any difference.
Oh yeah.
But it depends on the quality of the recording that you're playing back. In the SuperBeta position, a lot of circuitry, a lot of noise canceling circuitry, and a lot of de-emphasis, pre-emphasis circuitry is changed, which allows much more high frequency to come through. And we know that if the information isn't on the tape that you're playing back, you're going to get noise. Eh? You're going to get a grainy looking picture in the SuperBeta position. It's not unimportant, it's not a big thing. No one has been complaining about that in any great amount to us yet. But you can expect that. If, well, you can experiment with when you get your own machine to play with, is try that and see if you can actually see the difference. So it's much more acceptable to play it back, an ordinary tape, in the SuperBeta position than it is the other way around. Now, the people that are concerned about compatibility between machines say that even if you do play back a SuperBeta tape on an ordinary machine, chances are it's not going to be objectionable. You'll see a little bit maybe of horizontal streaking, but not very much of it. And I was told in Toronto that that's very true. Most people won't notice it until they get a lot of headwear on their non-SuperBeta machine. And with more headwear, that phenomenon will show up more and more. In fact, one fellow said that he actually changed heads, put new heads into an ordinary machine, and it eliminated that horizontal black streaking or the so-called overmodulation effect by putting brand new heads in. But that's not the answer. You know, that's only very temporary. Okay, any other questions about this? No? Good. We have the heading called New Circuits for the SLHF 900. And the first one is the SuperBeta switch. We've been talking about that, and we now know that it shifts the FM carrier by 800 kilohertz. We talked about the problems with that. The thing to remember is neither the beta hi-fi audio nor the color information is changed in any way at all. Then we have a little diagram below which talks about a frequency. Let's see here. Actually, on the following page, page 11, under B, it says record RF equalizer. When the SuperBeta switch is on, an equalizer is inserted into the luminance FM path, and the sidebands are emphasized. This leads to improved frequency response with a good signal-to-noise ratio. Now, put this diagram on first, I think, and we'll look at the results. Looking at this part, the record RF equalizer. Now, we're used to having things called equalizers and emphasis and de-emphasis and so on after demodulation. And here we're talking about something that occurs in the RF circuitry. It's a type of emphasis of the very high frequencies at the RF level. And I had difficulty understanding what that would do. And apparently what it does is only affects the very, very, very high frequency aspect of the RF, and it boosts it in amplitude. That if we could see the RF envelope, theoretically, we should be able to see it emphasized in amplitude. And since this is in the record circuitry where we do this emphasis, obviously when we play it back we're going to have a look at what we do with it. But what I had difficulty understanding was how that, since it's FM, could really have any effect. And it was explained to me that it's almost like an increase in record current at those frequencies. It puts an emphasis, a stronger magnetic imprint on the tape at those frequencies. And the reason for that is that just the very system of playing the tape back, the way the system is designed, you have a tremendous amount of roll-off at high frequencies in the playback mode. So this is one of their attempts to get better high-frequency response by, in a sense, jacking up the RF signal at the high frequencies.
Video Dolby.
Sort of a video Dolby type thing. Except they don't process it that way coming back. They put it in going in, and then they rely on the weakness of the machine to eliminate it coming back. So really what they're doing here is compensating for the natural built-in roll-off of your machine. Now each of these circuits by themselves probably wouldn't make very much difference, but together they add up to SuperBeta. And I don't know if it says, I think it says somewhere in here that SuperBeta is a North American term, that in Japan they call it high band, which is more logical as far as I'm concerned.
That's like on the beta movies, on the PMC 550. There's a switch on the bottom that says high band on and off. So you see the
So this little chart is to indicate in a graphic manner how that emphasis takes place. These are not drawn to scale. It's just to give you an idea that this sort of emphasis upon playback gives you a little better frequency response than you would have otherwise.
Deterioration of a head in SuperBeta machine is going to be more noticeable than an ordinary beta machine?
Because of the higher frequency? Probably. We don't know for sure, but it would sound logical that it might be. And I know what you're going to say next. In that case, for optimum record and playback, you should change the heads more frequently. I don't know. Keep in mind, this is still a consumer item. C, switchable AM, AFM band trap for Boy, that was a goodie, that one. It took me a while to understand that. What other colors have we got that work today? Kind of eliminates it altogether, doesn't it? Okay, in very simple terms, what that AM/FM trap does at that point is that it actually manipulates the sideband, the luminance FM sideband, which, according to this diagram, rolls off quite a bit before we get to the AM/FM signal, so that it's nice and clean here. It turns out it really isn't. That in the SuperBeta, this actually, well, I'm exaggerating, I guess, tends to look more like that. As a consequence, one would say, well, now they're going to interfere with each other, which is what we tried to get rid of in the first place. So they put in this switchable trap. And this little diagram here is supposed to indicate how the trap works. And all this really does is indicate that there's a time shift, a phase shift between the two traps. That for when one set of heads, like the A heads, are in the record mode, one of the traps in the luminance FM is activated, which cleans up that little area for just that little short period of time, but leaves all the luminance information after that. And on the other hand, when you get to the B heads, the other trap is switched in, and this one is allowed to pass the luminance FM information. And the best way to describe that is notch filtering, or the same kind of effect. Now obviously this has to be done at a fairly low level because the audio information is at a low level as compared to the luminance information to start with. So the sort of description I have here is not to scale. In other words, the luminance FM information that is allowed to slop over might be at a very low level so that the trapping doesn't have to be all that effective. And this, allowing the luminance FM signal to extend the lower sideband, apparently increases again our high frequency response a little bit. And it's another one of these small changes that tends to help to give us the better high frequency response. By itself, probably doesn't do a hell of a lot. Be aware that that circuit exists, and it can give you a problem, I suppose, someday. That is, if ever our machines give anybody ever problems. Yeah. What's that? What's that?
Not yet.
Okay, good. Hey, our coffee should be here any minute. That's the thing you've been wanting to hear for an hour, isn't it? Page 12, D, the soft limiter in playback. The description given here is not very clear. I have difficulty with it, so I'm going to try and explain it the way I understand it. If we emphasize the RF signal in the record mode, then it stands to reason that we would want to de-emphasize it in the playback mode. And I did mention that the machine itself provides a natural sort of roll-off at high frequency. But another way to do it would be to have some sort of a dynamic, or I should not a dynamic, I should say a filtering system or a de-emphasis system which would do it. Now, these people came up with the term soft limiter, which is a dynamic emphasis circuit. And where I had great difficulty here is, hey, wait a minute now, we've emphasized this thing, and now we're playing it back, and you're talking about re-emphasizing it, and you're calling it a limiter? Isn't that a contradiction? And they said, oh yeah, it is a contradiction. But this is the way it works. The machine gets rid of all that neat emphasis at the high frequency that you put into it. But maybe not all of it. So the soft limiter here, the dynamic emphasis, senses the amplitude or the strength of the high frequency end of the signal. And if it's at a normal level, say here, the dynamic circuit does nothing to it, it just passes it. But if the roll-off inherent in the machine is such that it rolled it off rather severely, then it will re-emphasize that high frequency. But it doesn't do it in a set manner, it does it in a dynamic manner, so that the less amplitude or strength of high frequency that you have in playback, the more this so-called soft limiter will emphasize the high frequencies. And where the soft limiter word comes in, apparently, is that there is no dynamic effect at all if the signal is at the proper level. If the machine has passed it at the proper level, nothing happens. If it's rolled it off too much, then we're going to kick it up. So it's both an emphasizing and a kind of a limiter. Confusing, isn't it? And the part I couldn't understand was if you emphasize it, you've got to de-emphasize it.
Well, the emphasize is on in certain range, I guess.
Yeah, but we're emphasizing it a second time. And we emphasize it in record, we emphasize it again in playback, and we call it a soft
On the
limiter.
roll also on the emphasize in the limited range.
Yeah. Very, very limited. Very limited. Very, way up at the very high frequency stuff. Now this is in addition to any of the processing that takes place after demodulation, because we run across these same terms after demodulation. We're still fooling around with RF at this stage. Okay. Compatibility with conventional models. That's a separate category altogether. We finished with the new circuits for SLHF 900 at the moment. And we go on to compatibility with conventional models on page 12. And here we talk about this so-called modulation noise, the short black lines and so on. We've covered all that. Compatibility with standard beta hi-fi units. Of course, they're talking about the audio portion. That has not changed. So there's total compatibility there. The sentence above that says that the 900 will operate properly with any existing Betamax tape, but for optimum signal-to-noise ratio, UGH tapes are recommended. Maybe we should take a minute and talk about tapes just before a coffee arrives. We're running into trouble with our tapes. Anyone notice? Okay. Well, as the tapes get better, like increased porosity, which means it retains the magnetic force better, that's good. Finer grain material and so on for recording, which gives us better high frequency response, that's good. What's bad is that as they're getting the coating finer and finer, that we're getting a phenomenon called stiction on our head drums. That theoretically, there's supposed to be a layer of air between the tape and the drum mechanism. And as your surface gets finer and finer, pretty soon that air that's in there is very, very thin or non-existent. And if it isn't there, then the tape wants to stick to the non-rotating part of the drum. And that creates all kinds of problems, as we all know, if your tape isn't running at the right speed or is going in fits and starts or whatever. Now, maybe we're not supposed to talk about our weaknesses, but nevertheless, it's a fact of life. And we have found in a number of our models that problems that the customer was complaining about was directly traced to the finer, better tape. And that our answer to that is that we recommend to the customer for their particular machine that they get better results using the standard Dimacron Sony tapes. That the ultra high grade tapes are meant for other machines than the one he has. Now, this doesn't occur on all machines, of course, but if you get a complaint that is traced to that, you'll find if you use the standard tape, your problem disappears. The engineers, Tokyo, whatever, know about this problem, and we keep hearing things that as soon as they come up with any kind of an answer, they'll let us know. But in the meantime, you know, suggest a different tape. But as far as the recording capability and the detail and all that and the noise level are far superior to our other standard models. Yes?
What kind of picture would you get on the screen when you have this problem occurring?
The stiction problem?
Yeah.
It slows it down, that's all.
Well,
The
the tape, yeah, if the tape is dragging across the heads and so on, then you're going to lose sync in that, because all of a sudden it's not traveling at the correct speed, and your back tension is going to go all crazy, and your tape path is going to be funny, and the whole thing's going to be a mess.
Will it sort of oscillate in and out of that situation?
It can do. It can do. You could have it running okay for a little bit, and then you have instability, and then it's okay again, and then instability. That's a minor case. The major case is everything's screwed up.
Similar to somebody not cleaning a drum.
Yeah, that's a good
Well, roughen the
This is
drum.
gonna happen, this is
You
gonna
roughen
happen
the drum
more
rather
often
than clean
too
it.
as the tape smooths out the
That's one
drum.
of his statements in
I
Benjamin.
met
Exactly.
with Toshiba, and Toshiba said the answer is to take some very fine emery paper and just go over the drum.
No,
It works.
What they do until 2025 when they find problems.
Emery paper, yeah, it actually works.
yeah. Okay.
Quite good.
By what we did to the 2500
When you got 160 and all that.
We can't recommend that,
I saw a couple.
but if you do it, well, you know, he wants to know about it. But that is one answer, is take a very fine emery cloth or whatever and scratch or rough up the drum surface a little bit. Now, in the industrial machines, we did that a lot. But, you know, our state here is that if you really want to solve the problem, you change the whole drum assembly.
If it is under warranty.
If it's under warranty, the machine's too new. It's not going to help.
Well, we see some 2,500 all they have left in
Yeah.
a year. Yeah.
Okay.
They use, 12 hours.
Two solutions. You change the drum that's gotten nice and shiny, or you recommend the standard tape, or both.
You still have to remove the shine first before you recommend the other tape.
Well, if the shine is that bad, you do, yeah. Recordings made on a conventional Beta
Page
Max
12.
model, the playback and playback on the 900, the SuperBeta switch should be off. Remember I said it doesn't really make that much difference? If it is turned on, the picture quality will not improve. Well, of course it won't. You can't make something from nothing. And the sync may be disturbed. Now, I've never seen that happen. Have any of you guys in the shop seen that? Where sync is disturbed on a normal...
Playback from SuperBeta mode?
Yeah?
Yes, look at the monoscope test pattern. Grab a test tape and put the monoscope pattern on and look at it in SuperBeta, it'll jump all over the place.
Yeah,
Horizontally.
but that's the test tape with the switching points disturbed.
Mhm. Even with some pre-recorded movies, if your tracking is not just perfect, you'll see black streaks on the left side, and there'll be a sync shift on the left side of the picture.
There will be a sync shift?
Yeah.
Okay, I have personally not seen that, but if you've seen it and it says so here, it must be true. So that's another reason why you want the SuperBeta switch off when you're playing back normal tapes, normally recorded tapes on a SuperBeta machine.
That's what electronic switch step is going to do.
It's a consumer switch, yeah.
And then
Oh.
the next generation.
Oh,
How about at the back of the page?
next generation will be three-dimensional pictures. Okay, page 13, we talked about the very top of the page, Beta 1 compatibility. Obviously, all our machines will play back Beta 1 without any problems, and this is no exception. And in order to achieve that, we have to talk about the fact that we have 4 heads on our drum, which comes on the next page. But at the moment, we're looking at the fact that our 4 heads are a little different than we are normally expecting. And the 2 main heads, the A-B heads, assuming it was just a 2-head drum, shows you that the thickness of the 900 is less than the conventional head. In other words, the width or height or thickness or whatever you want to call it. It's a narrower head, and the reason they want to do that on the normal head is so, well, according to this, so that it leaves a little bit of a guard band, which isn't a good term, because there is no guard band, as we know.
That's just in the 900 though, Joe.
Yeah. Just the 900. So we have, you'll notice I'm putting the caps back on. Commercial artist, I'm not. Actually, those should be side by side, but. And we have the double azimuth recording in order to cancel crosstalk and all that sort of thing, and we know all about that and how that works and so on. And all of a sudden now they're telling us, well, we're going to make a narrower head so that it doesn't cover the full amount of the recording. It's narrower than a normal recording would be, so as to allow a space. I guess I should draw the other one right next to it. How about a different color? So that we have a space in here. Instead of the 2 signals butting up against each other like that, there's actually a space. Now in our normal record, we know that the magnetic material, they do touch each other, but in the SuperBeta with the narrower heads, we now have a narrower band of magnetic material put down, and the spacing is the same because the timing of the tape speed and everything is the same, so it will create a bit of a guard band between the 2. So now we're back to the old system again, where we had a strip of recorded material, a space with nothing on it, then the next head recorded, then a space, the next head. The old system of doing it. So we have a combination of double azimuth plus the sideband effect, a minor sideband effect.
I don't think that reducing crosstalk from adjacent tracks. Those are, you know, the azimuth, different azimuth is no problem even the overlapping. And
all right. The reason they're minimizing the overlapping here by having the narrower head is because the circuits that our normal beta machines have to eliminate crosstalk are switched off in the beta hi-fi mode. kind of a sneaky way of getting around to that circuit. But in the beta hi-fi mode, these circuits are switched off.
So you mean the SuperBeta mode?
Pardon?
So you mean the SuperBeta mode?
Yeah, didn't I say that?
This is beta hi-fi.
Okay, super beta. Translate in your own mind for me. So we have the narrower head on the standard head. Now, the other pair of heads are wider, but we'll talk about those on the next page. In the meantime, point 3 here on page 13 is new de-emphasis. Now we're talking about after demodulation. And the new de-emphasis is that instead of perhaps just a standard de-emphasis that we had before, where we had a certain de-emphasis for beta 1, a different one for beta 2, and a different for beta 3, we now have them altered still in a different way between super beta and normal. So we not only have a different de-emphasis for each of the speeds, but we also have a switching between super beta and normal. And it doesn't go into the details of that circuit, but I don't think that's necessary. Just be aware that we now have something else that's doing some switching. Now, on your diagram, you'll notice here that the normal high band switch, and that's, here we are referring to high band, which is actually what we call super beta. So they call it high band here. It's, I guess it was copied from the Japanese manual and they didn't translate it. That's about all that we need to say about that. Page 14, we talk about the edit switch. With the edit switch off, this is under normal operation now. With the edit switch off, part of the video frequency spectrum is boosted, and by that they mean in all our other models. Normally it's boosted so that a sharper image is reproduced directly on the TV. And also in the standard machine, to improve the signal-to-noise ratio, a noise canceller and a comb filter are employed. However, these contribute to reduced fidelity when editing tape, and the 900 is provided with the edit switch in order to obtain an electrically flat and natural response during tape editing, which is a funny way of saying we turn all these things off because they were deteriorating our signal in the first place. And the end result is this little graph that you see here. So basically what they're saying they're doing is where this is the normal curve, where we show the boosting over at least most of the frequency spectrum at that stage. They cut that circuit out and theoretically gives us a flatter response. In other words, we eliminate the sharpness boost at that point. And, you know, at first glance you'd say, well, what the hell? They put it in there to improve sharpness, and now you're taking it away and we're supposed to have a better picture. What are you talking about? The answer to that is noise. Video noise is high frequency. So this is their way of reducing the actual noise of the signal at this stage by eliminating the sharpness boost at this point. Does that make sense? Later on we talk about the noise canceller in the filter business. Right now we're just talking about the video frequency spectrum boosting circuit. Now, here they say, just under that, when the edit mode is selected, The picture may not appear to be as good. However, the edited tape will have improved picture quality. Now, what they mean by that is the picture may not appear as good if you're looking at it on your monitor, monitoring the playback of the tape itself. And you can do that. You can check that yourself with the machine when you have a minute. It's something with a lot of high frequency in it. And you turn the edit mode on, you will see your picture lose detail right away. But what you're looking at is the output of the machine, of the tape, not what is being transferred onto the other machine. So this is a little confusing there. First of all, they say the picture may not appear as good, however, it will be better. You know, it's contradictory, but what they mean is it doesn't look that good while you're doing it, but the edited version will be much nicer. Okay? Now the edit switch also functions in the record mode. It disables the comb filter, which is used to remove the chroma from the luminance, as we all know. And by doing this, it prevents severe vertical displacement of chroma in multi-generation editing. What do they mean by that? Anybody want to guess?
When you go over these sections twice or three times, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, the reason is that when the comb filter is used to separate Y and chroma, the chroma is delayed in the process going through the comb filter. And it can be delayed at least one line, sometimes two lines. So if you have a picture something with, like so, window, how about that? And this is the chroma, and it's being processed by the comb filter. The Y information will be in one position, and the chroma will be displaced by, say, one line. Now, you feed that into another VCR, and it'll be delayed again. So all of a sudden, our Y signal is 2 lines or 3 lines or 4 lines above the chroma. So by the time you got to the 4th generation, it would look pretty funny. Here, our Y information ends here, but our chroma is still going on down below the picture. And for one generation, probably you never noticed the difference. But if you're going to get serious about editing, you're going to edit probably 3 generations, I would think. The original, and then another thing, and then you'll make a copy of that, so you're into 3 generations. So to minimize the chroma shift in the downward direction, they cut out the comb filter, which was used originally to separate chroma and luminance. Okay, if they cut that out, then how do they do it? How do they separate the chroma and luminance? They go back to the old system before we used comb filters, and they use ordinary notch filters. It sounds like a retrograde step. But the way they explain that is that the comb filter, the advantage of the comb filter over the ordinary filters was basically in the chroma sideband area and so on, the theory of which escapes me at the moment, and that sacrificing that gain it's better to sacrifice whatever little gain you would get by using the comb filter by eliminating the vertical shift of the chroma on the several generations of copies. And since it's switchable, it doesn't make that much difference. This only occurs when the edit switch is in the on position. So it doesn't really affect the normal operation of the machine normally. In the normal position, the comb filter works. In the edit position, it doesn't. That's the only difference. Make sense? And it shows a little diagram as to how they do that. Q413, which is the switch that eliminates the comb filter. If some of you do not really understand how a comb filter works, I'll refer you to some literature that you can get a hold of to do some reading up on it. Once you understand it, it looks very simple. Until you understand it, it looks very complicated, but it's just a way of filtering the two things out. Okay, page 15, it says for the detail switch. Another switch for the operator to use. And it says that during playback, the signal from the head is input into the video demodulator, of course, and then has the noise component suppressed at the de-emphasis circuit. Another word for that de-emphasis circuit is noise canceller. The quality of Betamax tape has improved dramatically since the format was introduced. High output, high performance tapes with excellent signal to noise ratios are now available. So what they're saying is, hey, maybe we don't need this noise canceller anymore because our tapes have improved and they are now low noise tapes. And I'm told that that's not only our high grade and ultra high grade, but also our standard Dimacron have been dramatically improved in that area. So all of a sudden, the circuit that we had in there before, maybe we don't need anymore. So we're going to get rid of it with a detail switch. On this model, the detail switch allows changing of the noise canceller circuit response to that most appropriate for high performance tape, resulting in better reproduction of fine picture details. Then it goes on to give you a diagram which is supposed to explain how that works, and it doesn't really. Very quickly, that really should be drawn. Like so. And let's say this is your video information from noise floor or noise level to the maximum of your video information. And in our normal machines, what happened was that they boosted the high frequency end of the video information to give us better detail. But if you did that at the same time, you also boost the noise level, the noise floor. And they boosted that so that they could unboost it later and have sort of like a Dolby effect. So that when they de-emphasize that, they also push the noise level down as well. Well, since we don't need all that anymore, our noise level is much lower with our newer tapes, then we can do away without this boost signal and the noise canceller, and that's what that edit switch does, basically. Again, it's a small thing, but added together, they all add up to SuperBeta.
So it operates in record and playback, the detail switch?
Just playback.
Just playback.
Yeah, just in playback, you know. Okay, then we go on to the new video heads, and here they show a diagram of the four heads, A, B, A prime, and B prime. And on the following page, it shows how these two heads look at each other. We're already familiar with the double azimuth head for our special effects. And basically, you could call this a four-head machine, or you could call it a two-head double azimuth, depending on how you want to describe it. And then we have a little chart which shows the use of the video heads, like which heads are used for what mode. And you'll notice that in the Beta 1 mode, they use For straight playback, they use A prime and B prime heads. And those are the heads that are thicker. You notice the little diagram up above. That we have our regular head, which is 27 microns, and then our A prime head and B prime head, which are 39. And it's the thicker head that is used in the beta 1 mode exclusively. And of course, there is a special switching network which switches the type of heads and puts in the appropriate delay. That's described on page 17. We won't go into that. You can do that. You can read that up on your own. And then, of course, the little chart here shows the heads that are used in the different modes. Beta 2, it's straight A and B. Beta 3, straight A and B. And we only use the A prime and B prime for special effects, which is it's not different than what we're used to already in some of our machines. One of the main factors of SuperBeta, one of the main points that is made is that when we're in cue and review, we have thinner lines of interference or non-information that occur. Because we know that we have 3 or 4 noise bars, as it were, in play or in cue and review, and they've minimized those in the 900 with these special heads. Oh, I've got this queued up as a bit of comedy relief to this very serious discussion that we're having. By special request from the guys that saw it yesterday, they want to see it again. It's a little excerpt from one of our test tapes. So it's queued up for that now. I'll show you that, then I'll show you the cue and review, okay? Remember that?
Who's that? Who's there? What you want? Police. We've had some complaints about conmen pretending to be blind and crippled. Oh, I'd love to help you, man, but I ain't seen nothing since I stepped on that landmine in Vietcong back in '72. It was rough, man, painful. You were in, so were we. Where? I was in, Stang Bang, Dangon, I was all over that place, basically, a lot of places. What unit were you in? I was with the Green Beret, Special Unit Battalion, Commando Airborne Tactics, Specialist Tactics, Unit Battalion. Yeah, it was real hush-hush. I was Agent Orange, that was my name, Agent Orange, Special Agent Orange, that was me. Airborne, huh? I have legs. I have look at this. Man, I can walk, Jesus. Praise Jesus. I appreciate this. Oh, this is beautiful. I can't believe it. Thank y'all. I don't know what to do.
What was that, that flutter in the audio we heard?
Tracking.
Yeah, it looks like we had a tracking problem.
Is it second generation tape?
Nope.
Original?
Oh, no, it's certainly not the original.
Is it?
Second.
Yeah, at least second,
Oh, it's not second.
maybe third. This is a copy of a copy of a copy. It looks like an original but by the label, but it isn't. Okay. Cue and review. You can see that there's very little breakup there, eh?
Like crystal head.
Go the other way. So that's what they were talking about. By using the different heights of heads, they achieve this type of cleaner review. Question?
Well, the crystal head will stay up. I mean, the ideal head will stay up the line completely.
No,
Dynamic tracking.
who has that?
I've seen those.
Industrial?
That's fine.
I've seen one of them with piezo head, and it never cleared up the line.
No.
A consumer item with the...
No, I'm just saying that it's still got the noise.
Well, I see one line there. It's portable, you know, TV 5000, but it's a video head in there.
Okay, I'm going to talk for a minute about that issue, because before you know it, you're going to be involved with this. It has to do with video 8. Now, we know what you're talking about, but a lot of the guys here don't, and that is, how can I best describe that? Drawing out again.
You're going to put a cap on that.
Your fault.
Head disc, head, okay? Slightly exaggerated. And we know that the height of these heads on the drum and so on is very critical and all that jazz, and it's not adjustable, and you know, the idea is to get the tape so that this tracks properly and whatever. Now what these people are talking about is that in broadcast and in some commercial applications for a long time now, they've had these heads mounted on the disc in such a way that they could be varied up and down a very small amount using an electric current. They refer to it as a piezoelectric effect, that if a current is applied to a crystal in a certain way, it's going to bend, it's going to change shape. And, well, where did we first meet the term piezoelectric? Was in a crystal pickup for a phonograph, where the needle vibrations twisted this little crystal and it produced electricity, produced a voltage. Well, this is the other way around. You feed this thing something and it'll bend. It does the opposite. So there are obviously control wires that'll go to the head, and a circuit which will control the height of this head while it's rotating like crazy. And it will track the line of magnetic material that it's supposed to dynamically. It's called dynamic tracking. Now, that feature makes for really perfect reproduction of whatever's on that tape. Perfect interchangeability. Like we know already, if you play back on a tape that's recorded on the same machine, you get almost perfect playback. The problem lies with somebody else's machine that is not quite as perfect as yours or whatever, and then we have problems. Well, this thing will compensate for that and follow it, so you get perfectly clean pictures at all times. Now, why am I mentioning that now? It's because I think you'll see in the next generation of 8mm that we will have that feature. Now, if we don't, Sony doesn't, some of our competitors will, because it's already been developed.
The Gronic system used them for 3 years now.
Who has?
Gronic European system. They don't have tracking control. Yeah.
You can turn the tape over.
Yeah, they got quarter-inch actually, half-inch on both.
Yeah.
They got this a long time ago.
The technology is here. It's just that we haven't got it down to our consumer level yet, but it's around the corner.
But CPU heads aren't going to eliminate the noise bars and high-speed dirt.
You don't need tracking control.
Well, I don't know if they will or not. I know that they certainly will improve the quality of the overall reproduction of the picture.
The third addition for special effects really.
Yeah, yeah. Still frame and all that will be
Oh, yeah, well,
absolutely fabulous. So, forget what I just said. We don't have it. Page 18, we've already touched on this over-recording business for insert editing, eh? And you see another switch, a gain switch, that is engaged during inserts only. That jacks up our recording current to try and wipe out the old material that's still on the tape for insert editing. And I have a note here that I'm supposed to show the demo tape which illustrates that, but we've already done it. Any questions? Yes.
It seems to me, there's something called tape saturation. Now, it seems to me that normally when you're making the machine, you manufacture it so you can put as much information on the tape as possible, so you get as little noise present in the picture as possible. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, aren't you actually over-modulating the tape when you're using a higher current? Aren't you going to end up with some kind of distortion that you don't want? Or is that negated by using FM to record?
Okay, the point you bring up is the tape is capable of only accepting so much before it oversaturates. And that as far as you understand, we're already to that point.
It should be. Maybe.
And if we do it a little more like this, we're going to cause problems.
Theoretically?
Theoretically, the only explanation I can give to that is that we are not saturating our tapes at the moment. We are not to the point of oversaturating.
I think in the inserting point, at the inserting, I think the high column will go off some of the high spaces response in that portion. No? The high column will...
There's nothing to indicate that happened.
No.
All right, we can suppose all kinds of things, but I have no hard data as to what happens at this point.
You will not if it just for 3 seconds.
Well,
For that point, I mean.
well, yeah, but if it's insert edit, it'll be the whole thing. Eh? I haven't noticed any real deterioration. There could be some there.
Yeah, usually if you apply too much power when recording, it will take a time.
Well, yeah, theoretically, you're absolutely correct. Yeah.
We're going to satisfy using the multimeter and edit about 5 times to see what happens.
Good point. We could do that. Yeah, we could do that. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some deterioration in the edit mode. But we already have this color problem already, which is masking a lot of things anyway. My experience with other brands of VCRs, when I use the insert edit mode, I was never really happy with the result.
Mm-hmm.
But I put up with that for the fact that I could actually insert edit, which was more important to me than the fidelity or the quality. And of course, with flying erase heads, we don't have any of these problems anymore. We don't have to over-record. So you're probably right. Okay. Tuner system, page 21. Here we have a bit of a change. We talked about this yesterday just a little bit. The major change here is that our tuner now embodies all kinds of things that were separate before. You'll notice that our controller IC is feeding serial data directly into our tuner. So our tuner is doing the job of our prescaler our frequency synthesizer. And our band selector. All these now are built into the tuner, so we don't have separate items for that. So that simplifies servicing, doesn't it? If any of those things are giving you trouble, you change the tuner.
Is the memory also on the same block?
No, the memory is down over here as a separate
Is it actually outboard?
outboard, yeah. So we have the controller chip directly into the tuner now. We've eliminated all these other things that can cause us problems. The memory is outboard and is still accessed in the same way. It's the only real change. I wouldn't be surprised to see this tuner used in our receivers in the next generation as well, our TV receivers. It only makes sense. Why have different assembly lines, different factory lines for the same job? That's fairly straightforward. Then we get into the audio part of things, and who wasn't here yesterday, other than our guys? Well, only 2 or 3. Well, we talked rather extensively about MTS sound yesterday, the multiple television sound system, and how it worked and whatever. Those people that weren't here yesterday, do you have a good understanding of how that works? You do? How about the Eaton's boys?
No. I was here yesterday. I understood it all right.
Yeah. Well, anyone who was here yesterday would get it. I don't think I'm going to take too much time today to go over the same material again. And the 2 fellows from Eaton's can always get all this information from their buddies that were here yesterday.
Can you just go over it briefly, because our buddies are on the road, we never see them.
That's true, yeah, that's true. And I'll let my other books go anyway.
I'll just touch it lightly. MTS stands for multiple television sound, which means that you have 3 types of sound that you can get out of the tuner, whether it's VCR or otherwise television. One is mono, the other is stereo, and the third one is SAP, or separate or second audio program. So you have 3 ways of receiving audio information now from your TV station. And this diagram illustrates how the 3 are the signals that allow you to do that are multiplexed or joined together to create that phenomenon. So at the bottom end of the audio frequency spectrum, from, well, we'll say 0 for the sake of simplicity, to just before horizontal frequency, which is 15,734, we have the normal mono audio, which is left plus right. And obviously it's below 15,000 hertz, and in reality it's probably closer to about 12 kilohertz.
At the top end of it, is it right?
At the upper end. Okay. Then centered around 2 horizontal frequencies, which is about 31.5 approximately, we have an AM modulated double sideband suppressed carrier signal, which carries the left minus right information. Then way down the line at the 5th, which is about 78.6 or so kilohertz, we have the second audio program information, and I understand it's very narrow bandwidth. I think it's only, what, about 5 kilohertz in bandwidth, so it is only used for speech. And all these signals are joined together, called multiplex, that signal is sent out to modulate the FM carrier in the normal manner. And of course, that signal has to be decoded coming back. And that's where the hassles come in. So in a nutshell, that's what it is. On your TV machines, whether receiver or VCR, you can manually select these three states. And most machines will automatically select mono or stereo depending on the information that's being transmitted. I forgot to mention that there's one other signal that's in here called a pilot signal, which is exactly at 15,734 and is actually synced to the horizontal frequency of a TV receiver. Does that help? Okay. As far as I want to go on that. Anyone want to ask any questions about this at this time?
Yeah, I got one question. My buddy asked me last night. I was over and told him what I'd been learning. Oh, well, if I buy one of these 900 VCRs, can I record off, say, channel 5, and then play back my tape and switch select mono, stereo, or SAP? I know. That's what I told him. He said, well, why not? You have to record it that way.
You couldn't explain to him why not?
First of all, he didn't understand a video. Doesn't take a picture and record it. I explained to him, you take the sound out, you take the luminance, you take the chroma, and you break it all down and mess it all up. He says, well, I want one that does that.
Okay. It obviously won't. You know why.
Tell the sales.
Yeah.
But if I want to record the SAP with the video program, I can switch to my SAP on the front and then record.
And then you record your SAP.
Yeah.
Actually, you could record both. You can record on both.
How many items do you have?
Andy? Can we record mono audio on one hi-fi channel and the SAP signal on the other hi-fi channel on the 900 by selecting it accordingly?
Nope.
I don't think so.
You can only record the SAP on your linear track.
SAP on the linear
Stereo program on the
video.
hi-fi.
All right, but you can do it, though.
Yeah, you can record both.
The SAP would go on the linear track, and the ordinary stereo information would go on your beta hi-fi.
You have to be in the beta hi-fi mode to be able to hear that.
Right.
Yeah.
On playback.
No, then you switch with your audio monitor
That's what I mean, yeah.
to normal mode to hear the SAP program.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so it can be done somehow or another, yeah.
We'll do it.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I know.
not quite the way he thinks it's done, okay?
Yeah.
Any other questions while we're on this? On page 24 and 25, we have some brief descriptions of what we went over in detail yesterday. For the Sony, the two Eaton's fellows that are here today for the first time, you can read up the material on MTS that we gave the guys yesterday to do with the XBR.
Give me his what, dude?
And you guys, yeah. You know. So by definition, all our Sony technicians know everything.
On the
Or
MTS
is it
system,
nothing? I always get those two words confused.
on the MTS system, there's another channel also that could be broadcast, a professional channel, which is above the second audio.
Please don't confuse us with things like that, eh?
It's called a chat too.
I don't want to talk about, I know about that one, but we don't use it, so forget about it. So the one question that was asked yesterday is, well, you know, do we have any of it in Canada yet? The answer is no. But the American transmitters south of the border are transmitting in stereo, and some cable systems are passing it on to us.
I don't use any SAP though. It's not out here.
No, it's
Where?
stereo.
But yeah, stereo we have here.
No SAP.
Oh yeah, well there's nothing being transmitted on SAP. They're not using it.
Not yet.
They use it in Miami.
So you got a phone, bring a set there, and
have a Spanish problem.
Are you saying that Eaton's technicians make enough money that they can go to Miami for their vacation?
Every weekend, eh?
You could probably find that, just very close to then separate retransmitting powers. All of those problems. Well, the French channel can be on the same line.
Well, they haven't decided what they're going to do with it yet, but at least it's there, and happily our machines are built to handle it when it happens, which is quite a change. We're ahead of the transmitting people in producing the thing that will, whatever. Yeah. My notes here say that I've got to show you a demonstration tape at this point. You need a break anyway.
A world premiere of the most technically advanced half-inch home video cassette recorder ever produced. The ultimate in VCR. Sony brings you SuperBeta. Sony's SLHF 900 allows the home videographer to edit like a professional, creating his or her own custom full-length videotapes for greater viewing pleasure. The SLHF 900 introduces many new features never before found on a consumer VCR. The first of the new features is the FM simulcast recording switch, enabling the FM tuner audio to be recorded as beta hi-fi stereo audio together with the picture. The edit switch allows home editing and dubbing of multi-generations with a minimal loss of picture quality. The SuperBeta switch enables the VCR to produce that extra quality found with SuperBeta recordings. The new detail switch works in the same manner as an audio cassette deck's tape selector switch. When using pre-recorded high-grade or pro-type tape, the switch is set to high, optimizing the VCR's ability to produce a high-quality playback. For the first time ever, Sony introduces into a consumer VCR the jog shuttle control, which up until now was only available on professional equipment. The jog shuttle can take control of 3 different modes. By enabling the clock set, the jog shuttle can be used to quickly find the appropriate day of the week and easily set up the timer and clock functions. When the input select switch is in the tuner setting, the jog now has control of the television channel to be selected. Finally, and more importantly, in the tape playback mode, the jog shuttle can control the tape speed ranging from 1/5 normal to 2 times normal speed in forward or reverse. Using the jog in either direction allows frame-by-frame advancements. The SLHF 900 is also capable of beta scanning and beta skip scan. Using the 900's RM125 infrared remote, the user is capable of controlling 2 Sony VCRs with circs and some remote functions of Sony Trinitron televisions, depending on the model. Truly a home video first, the SLHF 900 offers its user the capability of editing like a professional. Using the edit play allows a selected portion of a recorded tape to be recorded on any other Sony VCR, creating a series of assemble edits. With the SLHF 900 as the recorder, the user can select a section of video and or audio to be edited or inserted. We'll see the 900 perform its assemble edit functions later in the program. But first, let's examine the difference between SuperBeta and conventional beta. The most noticeable difference in SuperBeta's technology is the dramatic increase in picture quality by up to 20%. Here's how. The black and white information, or FM luminance signal, which contains all the picture detail, has been shifted to a higher frequency. In fact, the shift is 800 kilohertz, from 3.6 megahertz to 4.4 megahertz. The shift makes available more video information, or luminance, creating finer detail in the lower sideband. The finer detail, combined with SuperBeta's special circuitry, keeps the picture clean and crystal clear. The SLHF 900 not only provides better video through SuperBeta technology, but also enables the pictures to be dubbed and edited over and over again with a minimal loss of picture quality. The new addition of the edit switch eliminates video enhancement usually found when dubbing or editing machine to machine. Thus, a fourth-generation SuperBeta tape can look as beautiful as a second-generation tape recorded on a conventional VCR. The hi-fi stereo audio system, which Sony introduced 2 years ago, having a frequency range of 20 Hz to 20 kHz, has not changed. The high-fidelity audio with its dynamic range of greater than 80 dB is still recorded together with the video on the video track and simultaneously on the conventional monaural track, enabling non-beta hi-fi VCRs to play back the audio. Two other technical notes on the SuperBeta are, first, the use of 4 azimuth heads, producing greater picture quality by reducing crosstalk and allowing clear, sharp, and even still frames, and clear slow motion to 2 times the normal playback speed. The second is the 900's ability to record multiple television sound, or MTS, meaning television programs aired in stereo, as well as second audio programming, or SAP. Technically, SuperBeta is the world's best, but Sony doesn't stop there. Let's see the SLHF 900 combine the new technology with the new features. The Edit Play feature allows the user to select specific start and end points of a desired audio and video segment and have the segment recorded. In doing so, the user may rearrange and create his or her own videotape. Remember, some material may be copyrighted, and therefore the unauthorized use of such material is prohibited. The SLHF 900 is capable of controlling Sony VCRs equipped with Control-In and Control-S jacks, VCRs with a camera pause feature, VCRs with a 14-pin K-type camera connector, or any Sony VCR with an infrared remote control, all made possible because of Sony Infrared Remote Control System, or SIRCS. In our editing system, there is an SLHF 900, the RMT E1S remote transmitter, and an SL2700. To begin editing, set the edit switch to edit to stop video enhancement, and open the jog shuttle control and press Edit Play. A clock in the display window will change to a tape counter, and the start fluorescent display will blink. Shuttle through the footage until the first scene is found. Use the jog to be frame accurate to the beginning of the desired footage. Press the mark button and the start point will be memorized. And now the end indicator will blink. Shuttle through the footage until the end of the scene or segment is found. Once again, press mark. If the user wants, the selected scene can be previewed by pushing the Edit Start button. The start and end points of the audio and video have been set and memorized. So now set up the recorder by pushing the pause and the record at the same time. Place the RMT E1S in front of the infrared sensor of the recorder. The edit setup is complete. To perform the edit, press the Edit Start. Sit back, relax, and watch. Once the edit has finished, repeat the steps until a final edited video has been assembled. To achieve the best editing system, use the CCD VA camera recorder as the player, an RME100 edit controller, and the SLHF 900 as the recorder. The controller can command any other Sony VCR having Sony Infrared Remote Control System, or SIRCS. This is done by hardwiring it to the Control-In or Control-S jacks on the back of a deck, or using the RMT E1S remote transmitter. Presently, the controller can only be powered by the CCD V8 camera or the new CCD V8 autofocus. The edit controller is capable of automatic dubs, manual assemble edits, meaning one scene, audio and video, edited to the end of another scene, and automatic assemble edits. To simply copy the player tape onto the recorder tape, press the player button. Now the keypad will control the player. Press rewind and let the tape begin to rewind. While the player is rewinding, press the recorder button and the pad will now control the recorder. Again, press rewind or locate the point on the tape where the dub is to begin. Once both VCRs have rewound, press the video edit button. The edit will begin, and when the player tape is finished, the recorder will automatically stop. But by pressing the video edit a second time, the recorder and edit can be stopped manually. To manually assemble scenes, press the player button. Then press the play key on the pad. Once again, ensure that the edit switch is on. Press the recorder button. At the desired point, press the red record button. At the desired out, press pause or stop when all scenes have been assembled. Auto-assemble editing enables the user to program into the controller up to 8 different audio and video segments, which will be edited in order onto the recorder tape. To proceed, press the player button. Using the keypad, search for the first scene to be edited. Once the scene has been located, find the desired cut-in point and press pause. To enter the in point, press Program Memory. The cut-in point will be memorized and cut-out will appear in the display window. Locate the desired cut-out point. Press pause and enter the point by pressing Program Memory. The cut-out point will be memorized and the program indicator will change from 1 to 2. And cut in will once again appear. Repeat these steps until either all 8 programs have been entered or the desired number of programs have been memorized. The user does have the capability to preview the entered programs or change any or all of the programs, but we will not show these procedures. After entering all the programs, check the edit switch is set to edit. Then set the recorder to the recording pause mode by pressing the recorder button, then pressing the red record button and pause. To engage the actual editing process, press the program edit. Sit back, relax, and watch the edits automatically assemble into the final created video. Sony's SLHF 900 gives home video creations the world's best technology and the quality and capabilities of professionals, setting you on your way to home editing never before available on home VCRs.
Best part of the day, right? All right, page 27. We talked a little bit more about the insert editing. We know all about that already. Well, let's just go over it. It says that the new information that is in insert editing will be properly synchronized at both the starting and ending transitions. This will result in distortion and disturbance-free editing. And I've written in there myself only in the luminance, because we know that we have disturbance in the color information. Another important part of the editing system is the timing. And the microcomputer system will memorize both the start and end points of the insert to give very, very precise results. And then I've made the note that there's a 7-frame, at least on the machine I worked on, backup. In other words, it doesn't occur where you actually found it will. So you have to determine how many frames to compensate for. But it does do it automatically, which is kind of nice. Control of the edits is handled by IC 401, system control, main system control IC. The interesting thing is on page 27, that diagram. Is that the function buttons. Again, we have a ladder type network, and it varies a DC voltage into pin 14. And FU obviously stands for function switch, in case you're wondering. So we have a very simple system control. It's not complicated, as complicated as some of our other control units. And I've noted here the pin 67. Where is it? Here. Vertical drive stroke control. The system control, of course, reads the control pulses for editing purposes, and it's for, well, counting purposes and so on. The control track pulses are kept an accurate count of in the main IC. All right, page 28, you see here that when an insert edit is being performed, the control track is never altered. Well, we've already covered that. We need to maintain the control track if we want good clean edits in the insert mode. For assemble edit, it's not important. And of course, when beta hi-fi recordings, with beta hi-fi recordings, you eliminate your audio as well as your video at the same time, since they're multiplexed together. The only thing you can alter on the 900 is the linear audio. And it goes on to give you a little chart as to how the different ways you can handle that. Page 30. This was mentioned in the tape. Got to be here somewhere. It's all right. I'll get it. The various ways you can interface the 900 with another of our VCRs. And in the tape it mentioned this too. Boy, this thing doesn't focus very good, does it?
Need a focus lock.
Now, I had a call with a fellow who had a 2700 and a 900, and he says, you know, I can't hook it up the way you're supposed to, so that the 900 makes this go and that sort of thing. And at first I couldn't understand what he was saying, and then I found out that this does not have a separate Circs control input, and that there are only two ways you can interface this, and that is with this RMTE1S remote control transmitter, which will take the control signal from your 900, convert it into an infrared signal, which will then be received by the VCR and converted into the signal you want. So
So that would be true for this model as well. There's no way of hardwiring it other than going in through the camera connector. And you need this special cable here to do that. And I didn't know that at the time. I wasn't able to tell them. Now I can. The thing to remember on all of these configurations is that the slave VCR, the one that's being controlled, the only thing that is being controlled is the pause. It's just in pause, out of pause. That's all that happens. The only signal is transmitted no matter how you do it. Now, on our latest generation of VCRs, like the SL, I think 20s, 30s, 300s, 500s, and all that, they all have, for sure, the control input. Usually one in and one out, so that they're all adaptable to this type of control. So, when somebody's talking to you about hooking these up, you have to know what model it is that they're trying to marry together. And then you have to be sure you know what it will do and what it won't do. Interestingly enough, you'll notice that the 900 is always on the left here, and the normal way for editing is from left to right, play back and record. Although on the tape they had it the other way around. But then what the salespeople know anyway. So the SLH F900 for controlling other units is usually just the playback unit, not the record unit. Any questions about that?
You're using, for instance, the third example there with the camera input. Is there any reason, has anybody tried using that with, say, Brand X VHS or Brand X anything with the camera input? It would work, wouldn't it? Probably?
Nope.
Oh, actually, yeah, some of the remote pauses are different.
Yeah, some require a positive pulse, some a negative pulse.
Some require a latching too.
Yeah, it depends what they will require to do the job.
You can actually, by simple modifications to the VHS, just use the pause button on it. Because the camera out, what I found when I did one on the weekend, was the camera out control, all it does is it just closes the two together on the pause out. Closes the two pins on the jack together. So if you were to put that to the pause button inside the VHS wired up through a special jack, it will control it. But you need to modify the machine to do it.
There are camera adapters already available on the VHS machine.
Is there?
Yeah. I was going to say, Homer, another point on that you're showing there on that chart is that all of the audio and video cables are all coming from output of the 900 to input to the other machine.
Yeah.
And it raised the point, or something I was curious about, and I can't remember off the top of the head, the camera input to the 2700, the two audio tracks going into that, do they get routed to the Beta Hi-Fi tree or not?
I don't know. I can't answer that question.
Because I know there are two audio lines on the camera jack, or on our camera connection, but I can't remember if they get routed to that or not.
I think they do.
Why would there be two audio? Why would there be two audio lines? We only have
even cameras, some of the cameras.
This one is.
Two
This one is.
audio lines.
So that they will accept the stereo microphone in
Yeah.
our cameras?
Yeah. A lot of them.
Okay, that's a good question. I don't know if that automatically goes to the Beta Hi-Fi or not.
It does. It does.
It does?
Yeah, because I hooked this one up to a 2700 when I was doing a rock band, and we just plugged it right into the connector on the front. We used the one built-in mic here on the left channel. We used an external mic on the right channel and stuck it over on the stand, and it was fine. It was on the Hi-Fi, and it was discrete left and right.
Good question. Pardon? A lot of fooling around, yeah. See, Dave is a great fooler arounder. He's a great source of information because those of us that work for a living, we haven't got time to do all that. Isn't that right? But I'd say nothing is impossible if you've got the time.
Yeah.
But one thing I've learned in working with both VHS systems and Sony systems, the engineers seem to do a little industrial espionage on each other to find out what they're doing, and then they do the opposite, you know, just so there is no real compatibility between the two. And why? I don't know. No more problem though with that with V8, with the 8mm. World standard. That's why, by the way, the more you hear about Beta disappearing from the scene, you can apply to VHS as well. Don't let anybody kid you. If they go out, they'll both go out at the same time.
You think so?
Absolutely. No question. It'll be a long time because there's a lot of machines up there. But I'll bet you...
10 years?
5 to 10 years.
Oh,
It won't be long before we use a ROM
It
track,
won't be
that's all
now.
we use.
No, it could be 10
Until
years.
the VX machine and the patient will pick up.
yeah. The point is, though, that you people that are servicing will be repairing them for some years. You know?
Well, most VHS manufacturers don't want to push VHS very hard, you know, they still make money on it.
All you have to do is look at what we're getting now, and you don't see very many machines that are 5 years old either.
Yeah.
People go to a 5-year-old machine and you tell them $100 to repair it. Oh God, I'll buy a new one.
Yeah, well, because they're so cheap, yeah. Well, okay. Assemble editing, we talked about that. And you've all had a chance to look at the 900 now and open the little door and saw the jog control. And I want to talk a little bit about that because the first reaction I had, as we all had to the jog control, was, oh my God, another thing to break. You know, when you work with it, it seems a little chintzy, you know. But believe it or not, here's part of one here. And it's quite strongly, quite well made. And the signals that are transmitted by moving this dial are not mechanical. They're they're optical. There are optical sensors that sense the silvered part as opposed to the black part on these two wheels. And the position of these wheels in relationship to the three sensors tells the microprocessor what to do. And that's described quite nicely in the book here. So really, since there are no mechanical switches or anything, I don't expect this is going to give us any trouble. I really don't. There's nothing to corrode, nothing to go bad or anything like that.
The DNO used it for many, many years. Yeah. And I own one for 6 years now, no problem.
Oh, yeah.
Control volume by using the FD and the dial and...
Yeah.
Herman Carden used a similar thing for motion sensing on the bottom of one of their take-up rails, and we've had, I think, 2 units in 3 years that have had one tiny, almost invisible little contamination on a piece of silver, which causes the tape deck to shut off because it's not cutting pulses properly.
Oh, yeah.
So if you get anything weird with that, brush them off or clean them.
There's no physical contact at all there.
There's no physical contact.
Just like the rotation detectors in most of our machines now. They're all optical.
Yeah, same principle. Now, that creates a new acronym or abbreviation, if you will, for our systems control. And if you look at page 33, if I can find it. ROL. Anybody know what ROL stands for? Did you?
Optical reflection.
Only light.
That's ORL.
Okay, reflection optical.
Okay, that was interesting. When we went to Toronto to learn about this, that was one of the questions that was asked. What the hell does ROL stand for real? You know, like we know what it does, but what does it stand for? And they said, well, we didn't know what it really stood for up until now, so we made up our own, and that's what you read here, and it's reflective optical link.
Link.
Reflective optical link. This is what Toronto came up with, and it describes it very well. Then Tokyo responded and said, ROL, that's just short for rolling. You know, which is brilliant. So, reflective optical link describes what it does very nicely, and rolling describes nothing, as far as I'm concerned. So, if you want to make a note of that. obviously, we have 3 optical sensors. And the output from that, the signals are shaped and then fed to the system control IC. So those of you that have read the book already know that we have 2 motion sensors, as it were, and 1 reset sensor. So you're not going to have a lot of signal changes. It's not like serial data or anything like that. It's one little piece of information each time you move the dial. And it's not a continuous thing. It's an intermittent type of signal, which you can feel when you move that jog dial with your finger, that there's actually a detent position that you go through. And the idea of the detent position is so that you can feel when you're going one notch or 1 signal at a time, for frame-by-frame search, for instance, or channel changing, because the same thing not only serves as a search function, but as a channel change function on the tuner. And that's where this one that says roll pulse, the output of the IC. Hang on. This pulse, which is output from the system control, is used for the channel change function. The other 3 are obvious: the roll direction and the 2 roll speeds. And those 4 signals are sent into IC 401, where they are handled and transferred into the appropriate action type signals to have something happen. So the system is quite simple, and as far as I can see, it's not going to give you any trouble. Somebody asked how many doors we replaced so far, because the little door comes down and all you need to do is lean on it a little bit and it's going to break off. So far we haven't had any break off from misuse. We've had a unit in where that was dropped and smashed it, but that's a little unusual. Have we replaced any doors for misuse? Just the one that was broken in transit, yeah. So, you know, at first I thought, oh boy, but seems to be holding out okay.
Is the one right off? Right or?
Pardon?
The drop unit, the right off?
No. What did we do? We replaced the whole front panel and all this stuff and all that, and then we sold it for brand new.
I see.
Isn't that the way it works? No, I don't know where it is, but no, they just rebuilt it. Page. Sorry? Oh. Reading about how that works is all that you need to do. There's nothing I can add to that. There's nothing fancy or unusual. Certainly, the system for finding your place on the tape for edit purposes is the main idea of this rotary type jog control. It's an editing type system that, as some of you have pointed out, have been used with other machines for some time. And it seems to work very well. Any questions about that area at the moment? No? Okay, we'll move on to the remote commander, page 36 and 37. There's some changes there. Two major changes. One is the little control right at the very top, TV VCR selector. Now we have the first generation of controls that will control more than one machine. If you change this switch, it changes the oscillator frequency of the sender and allows it to control your TV set. So that some of the buttons here will control the TV set if that is put into the TV position. And if you want all the buttons to work on your VCR, you put it into the other position. And you want to note that there are controls on the side of the unit as well as on the top. And you have to learn as to which ones affect the TV set and which ones affect the VCR and so on. There's no point going into detail on that. You'll never remember it anyway. We have on the side of the unit an auxiliary select button, which obviously does what it's supposed to do. A little further down we have another term called auxiliary key. That's an error. That shouldn't be there. We've already talked about it here. Channel up and down button on the side and a volume up and down button on the side. The trouble with this is that if you have an XBR, for instance, and a 900, this control will only do certain things for the XBR. It won't do all the things that the actual remote control will do for you. As a consequence, it's quite limited as being used as a dual control. But it's still better than nothing.
Something you might want to mention over, we had a few remote controls for these and few of the models coming in. People complaining the stop buttons aren't working. The record hold button on there, and all that does is that literally disables the stop button. It's just so somebody can't inadvertently stop your recording by remote control when you've got the machine running. Yeah, in the lower left-hand corner, left button at the bottom row, the record hold.
Oh, sorry.
And if that's in the hold position, it just disables the stop button, no matter what function you're
using. Record hold is there, yeah.
And we've had a few of them coming in, people saying they don't work, and all you do is flip the switch and it's fine.
I took a part of Daniel for the same thing, yeah. A lock position, you couldn't move any of the buttons.
In a hold mode.
Had all hard to kill the problem, bloody switch.
That's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that one too much, but that's right. If that's in the wrong position, then you can't control your machine.
Everything else works, but you can't stop it.
It's just power on off, isn't it?
No, it just literally disables that one stop button, that's all. Everything else still works.
Yeah, just a stop button.
Stop on.
Okay. The other main thing about the control is that it is capable, no, actually this is the machine, the 900, the control is here.
No, it's on the back
there. On the back of the remote.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it shows it here. Okay. On the back of the remote control is a button which allows you to select VTR1 or VTR2 signals. So there is a change in frequency of the serial CIRC signal, and VTR1 is our normal VTR set of signals that any of our VCRs will respond to. And on the 900 you have a selector button at the top which allows you to select either VTR1 or VTR2, which will marry up with whatever you select on the hand control for controlling it. The reason being that now we're in editing business, we don't want one control firing up both machines at the same time. So that the same control will work on two different VCRs if you select the appropriate buttons. Just something else to remember. So, all right, if people get screwed up on the record hold switch, they can also get screwed up on this switch. If that's accidentally pushed over to VTR2 and their 900 is set on VTR1, then it's not going to work at all.
Normal operation should be the 900 set to VTR2, because the other machine, if they do have a second machine, it won't respond to anything but VTR1 code.
Yeah.
Normally you would have the 900 on VTR2.
Yeah. Something else to watch for when you get a complaint about something, that extra switch. That's a good feature because we've all heard the complaints. Well, I've got a couple of VCRs and a receiver, and every time I push the button, everything happens to all the machines.
Well, then the next time we spend half an hour to fool around with the control for fix it.
Yeah. Well, this, adds weight to my statement that I made yesterday, that step one in servicing any of this equipment is to know what the hell it's supposed to do. And the best way to do that is to take the owner's manual and the machine and learn how to run it. Never mind how to fix it. How does it supposed to run? Believe me, you'll save a lot of time. Won't you, John?
Yeah, but, I mean, if you just picture the shop saying, okay, ship me one of everything, you know, it's impossible, but it's, you know, reading manuals, so even the service manuals you get in, going through them quickly, can sometimes you pick up a lot of information that you never thought you had.
Most of our service manuals have pretty well the same information as in the owner's manual, but not always.
Yeah,
Not always. So you may have to do this if a customer is going to bring in an item that you're not familiar with. Is tell him to bring his instruction manual as well.
No, you also instruction manual, you know.
It's because you don't know nothing.
Well, you know,
Well, they're right.
If you don't know how to operate, you wouldn't even know how to fix them.
Well,
It's kind of embarrassing.
Actually, what Zenith is going to do, every time you purchase a VCR, there's going to be a pre-recorded tape, demonstration
oh,
tape.
yeah. Yeah.
They come with every new video.
Just ask for all their associated.
Anyway,
you were mentioning too, just to let you know that it doesn't change the frequency, you're changing the digital code.
well, from VTR 1 to VTR 2.
Even from TV to VTR. Yeah, I read that good last night.
Well, that's great.
You know, lately, it's only manual, they do have.
Yeah, you're right, it doesn't.
Because they say they can even enter in a lot more different codes. So all the others.
Okay, I stand corrected. Somebody actually did read this last night. It's not the central frequency that's changed, it's the coding that's changed, see, for the different modes. And that's nicely described on page 37, 38, 39, as to how that's done. Oh, Commander. The key point on the commander is to remember is that the oscillator here is only active when you depress a button of some sort. When you ask it to do something is the only time it'll oscillate. And I guess that's kind of important in troubleshooting. If you're troubleshooting it and you put your scope on there and there's nothing there, and we all know it has to be there for the IC microprocessor to work. So we change the crystal, it doesn't work. We change the IC, it still doesn't work, and then we discover, hey, you got to push your button first. So I'm just letting you know ahead of time that you want to do that. The reason for that is apparently energy saving. There's less drain on the battery if the oscillator isn't functioning all the time. I guess that makes sense. Are there any other peculiarities about the hand control, fellas, that you've run across that we should know? Andy or Parvajan? Fairly straightforward, eh? How do you test one of these if you don't have the receiver or the VCR?
Yes. Well, you can buy, you know, the remote, any infrared remote sensor test here, $60 from Panasonic. Yeah, you can buy one video set to your own. Oh, yeah, yes. Oh.
Have you been using the receivers for TVs, stuff like that? You can either scope across the IR led TVs, and you can tell if the rest of the circuitry is working, or else, like I say, you can Android.
Your remote was service for all the TVs.
Yeah.
The magic mirror from Sears for $5, the card that flashes orange, or you get it with this red. Yeah.
Say that louder so we can all hear.
It's called a magic mirror. It's just a card from Sears that flashes orange when you hit it with infrared energy. It tells you whether it's transmitting or not.
I'll take that one.
Well, with
we have
Here's one of their service flashes, it's $5.
I'll get you one of those in my book.
You can get one from RCA too.
Just
Oh,
like
yeah,
a credit card with a piece of white stand
Okay, you say from Sears, like what department?
Yeah, it's out of the service department, one of their service flashes.
It's one of their service aids, eh?
Yeah. We got it through Sears. Pull the bandage here.
First I've heard of it. Okay, so there are various ways of doing it. One is just to get the infrared receiver and just scope the output of that.
It's a good investment buying the infrared detector, with everything ready, $60. You can check any battery, any infrared.
Any visible.
Panasonic.
They use that or RCA. RCA to pocket.
Okay, I'm told in Toronto that Sony will be putting out a bulletin very soon with a device like that.
Oh.
It'll be a little kit that you put together.
Yeah, that's right.
When?
I don't know when.
You can buy them reduce right now.
It's not going to be assembled.
Over radio
They're just going to put together the parts for you to build your
You mean
own.
the sensor on it, the whole thing?
Just the receive.
I mean, you still need op-amp to amplify.
No.
Everything is in there.
The one piece.
Or, just kind of
I got one a long time ago.
Okay, page 41, our index circuitry.
You don't have any good and bad to leave them up.
The index circuitry is not much different from anything we already know. And indexing takes place by changing the control track pulse to a different duty cycle. And then there are circuits that sense this different duty cycle and indicate that that's an index point. There's nothing difficult about that. As far as I know, we haven't had very much problem, if any, with indexing with our machines. That's part of it. There may be more now since we're into the editing more so than before. But the thing that you have to learn, I think, is how the indexing gets onto the tape. Not technically how, but how the operator can index and how he can erase. Apparently, it's not all that simple. From what I read in the instruction manual and working with the 900. And you may be called upon to explain to customers how to do that. But that's an operator type thing that you can learn from the instruction manual and practice as to how to index and how to erase the index points.
One thing I found about indexes, or indexing systems in the various machines we've had, is if there's a slight tape pad there, or some wear on the CTL heads or dirt, anything like that, the first thing you lose is the index. They just won't pick it up. You know, even though the tape is running by fine, you know the index point's there.
Okay, now how do you remove the index mark then?
They're all the machines that have it.
Automatic
Everyone
erase.
they have an erase function.
That's all right, eh?
They click one button and it'll
Does
erase the
this
mark.
one work the same as the 27 on that?
I haven't done it on this machine, I think
This
so.
machine is very
Pretty
simple.
sure it
Yeah,
does.
because it's not the same as the 27 either.
Yeah.
No. Use the same key for mark and erase, as opposed to two separate keys. You hit your index key, you get the number of index you want to erase, then you hit your erase key, and then you fast forward or rewind, and it'll go to the next, that particular index and select it and erase it.
But you have to hit the fast forward rewind yourself?
Yeah.
Because the other machines that would do it automatically.
You can erase all the index by hitting the index once, and it flashes index scan, then hit mark and erase, and fast forward and rewind, and it'll erase them from that point on, and that point back, all of them.
Okay, that's fine.
Now we come into something that's new. Real motor torque control.
Of course, it's the real motor.
We've had torque control circuitry before in some of our models, and on some of them it was an adjustable torque. These are fixed and not adjustable, but they sense the current that is being drawn by the real motor, well, real motor drive circuit actually, and the real motor control will compensate. It senses, I guess, if the real motor drive is working harder, there's more current flowing, this is sensed, and corrective measures are taken by the control IC. So that theoretically then, the real motor should be operating at the correct speed under different load conditions, and it's handled automatically. The thing to watch here, though, is when you're checking for take-up tensions and things like that, which are not handled by any other servo, that there is sufficient torque to start with. So you have to familiarize yourself with what this particular machine requires. And I've underlined here that this IC 701 acts as a voltage regulator which will maintain the motor drive torque at levels predetermined by the designer. In other words, there's nothing you can do about it to change it.
What if we find the machine's got too low torque or too high torque? What's the best place to start?
Maybe train some resistors.
What about pin 1 and torque adjustment?
Those clutches and the take-up rails, you know?
Say that again?
Take-up rails have clutches.
Yeah, it's voltage conscious.
Take-up rails?
Yeah.
They have clutches, yes.
Oh, no, but I'm coming to that.
Okay.
But I mean,
Well, I was
just,
just thinking the question he was asking about if you have torque
Do
problems.
they
well,
have clutches?
no, I think his question was, supposing the real motor is not doing its job the
No,
way it should be
the
doing
question
it.
is, you put a torque meter in, the torque's too high or the torque's too low. Where do you start looking? Is there a clutch in the take-up here?
Well, okay, in this machine, as far as I can tell, it's all controlled by that IC. Okay?
What about on pin 1? It says torque adjustment.
Right.
Well, do you see any adjustment there?
Well, you can change the ground, that ground resistor.
Two fixed resistors.
Yeah, actually, you change those around.
Well, this is not, it's not recommended that you do any changing there, okay? I'm not saying that there are not some cases that maybe that'll solve the problem, but that isn't where you would look first of all. I would look for something, some sort of feedback signal or whatever that's incorrect.
I'll check pin 14, the DC level compared with the, check the out from pin 14 and see how it's
Yeah, see what the voltage is at pin 14.
We got good non-machine market down for the first time.
Well, the service manual may even tell us. I don't know. We'd have to look it up. The point here is to be aware of this major change, that torque is supposed to be automatically compensated for.
Well, is the real motor on this one just a DC motor now?
Yeah.
Here's the direct drive.
This is a good point to introduce something that I wanted to do. We all know that our previous high-level models, like the 2700, had individual motor drive reels, eh? Each reel was an individual flat-pack motor, or whatever you want to call it. BSL, should say. BSR. That's audio. That's audio, right? Okay, they don't use this. And this, you know, as far as I was concerned, was a really good system. And, you know, maintained torque and back tension and everything very nicely. So they use basically the system, the gear drive system that we use on our 2710. For the actual mechanism of the 900, if you look at the 2710, you will find it very, very, very similar. It is not similar to the 2700, okay?
It's also similar to
And
2400.
as we know that with the real drive, with the gear drive, we have what they call a pendulum gear, which swings from one side to the other depending which reel you want to drive. Obviously, you know, the take up is when you're in play, and rewind it, turn the other one. Basically the same system. One motor drive, another BSL motor, it looks like, down there, a little flat pack motor, which the torque, as we know, is automatically controlled. Now, the trouble with this, using this as is that we want reverse capability on our machines that is almost equal to the forward capability. We want to be able to see our picture going backwards, which means that we have to control the tape tension going over the heads and the head drum and all that sort of thing. And we all know how it's done in the forward direction. We have mechanical servo on the supply reel, which keeps the back tension correct and all that. Well, unfortunately, they don't do that in the 900. In going backwards, they have a modified reel system. It's gear driven, but there are two parts to it. And the two parts are driven by a slip clutch. Slip clutches are something that we haven't seen for quite some time in our Sony machines, but here it is, we're back with them again. And when you're in the forward direction, the slip clutch does not slip. There are special little U-shaped dogs, as they call them, that come up and fit into two slots at the bottom of the reel table and lock the upper part. And it locks these two parts together so it behaves just like this one, which was one solid piece. But when you go backwards, the dogs are released, and that allows the clutch to slip a particular amount. There is where you're going to have some tension problems in time. And there is no adjustment for that. That built-in coefficient of friction is there, and if that changes, there's only one answer. Replace this whole reel mechanism. But the important thing to remember is if you've got tape tension problems going in the forward direction, the first thing you look for is to see that these two are locked up in that mode, and if they are, then it has nothing to do with the slip clutches in the forward direction. You'll notice as well the silvered and black signals for our motion detector, which we decided was a rotary optical link type of thing. But we've had that for quite a while. So the slip clutches may be a source of problem in time. We don't know. They seem to be well protected from dust and dirt and rum and coke and whatever you may pour in there, but they're not 100% foolproof. I had a problem with the 900 with tension problem and so on, and that's what led me to do some research into these to see just how they did function properly and so on. Because the first thing I discovered was that there was no way of adjusting the torque, like you mentioned. And I was wondering how they did all this, and finally I discovered it by actually working with it. Let's see, I think there's a section here that talks more about that. Page 57. It shows you what they call the up and down rings. And the up and down rings are moved up and down by a U-shaped set of dogs, or whatever you want to call it. And there's another supply reel lock solenoid that needs to be activated. Another source of perhaps looking for solenoid problems. No. Where did it go? Here it is. If you suspect a clutch problem, it's recommended that you take the reel out of the machine, take your tension torque cassette, mount it in there, and then turn it in the appropriate direction by hand. And you'll be able to read the amount of torque right on the gauge.
What's the proper torque?
What's the proper torque? Would you believe I don't know? Yes, you believe.
Doesn't the pointers line up, I guess, as long as the pointers line up?
No, it'll be in your service manual as to what it's supposed to be, or your adjustment manual.
When you look at the system here, you know why the 7 frames are missing somewhere along the line by indexing. The delay that is occurring because you have a solenoid that has to activate those dogs. The dogs have to go in or out. The 7 frames down the drain, that's what you said. In the indexing mode.
Well, that could be part of the answer, but the way I look at it is this, that it rewinds a certain amount, you know, in the edit position.
Yeah.
Then it goes into the playback mode, and the number of frames, which might be 15 or 20 or whatever it is, way back here, is sufficient for all, to allow enough time for all these things to happen before the record switches in.
Right, yeah.
And the point they have chosen for the record to switch in is built into the microcomputer. And my argument is, why couldn't they build it so it would come closer to it? Because all these mechanical things should have happened in the playback mode before it got to the edit position. And we can't adjust that. It's built into the program.
Is this a lot cheaper system than the other way? Must be.
Well, no, we've never been concerned about what the picture looked like going backwards before.
I'm talking about the motor itself.
Is this cheaper to build?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Than
Has
this?
to be.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's no question that this is a less expensive way of doing it than this.
You know, in the manual for the reverse torque, they give it as 90 to 160 grams a centimeter.
90 to 160, pretty broad, isn't it? Yeah, okay.
That's not really accurate, I'm not worried.
Is that for both, or?
No, the forward torque is the same as it's just always been 44 grams.
So there's a difference between the two reels,
Yeah.
real tables. This system has been relatively trouble-free as far as I understand, hasn't it, guys?
That's right.
We had trouble with this plastic pendulum warping and sticking, but that's been cured apparently.
I've got a couple of circuit boards actually worked too. The rotor starts to scrape on the stator cord.
Yep,
I've had a couple
Oh,
of
the
solenoids.
circuit board itself worked?
Yeah.
yeah.
Really?
Had a couple of solenoids get stuck,
Oh, solenoid, yeah.
and the fuses inside them blowing.
Well, solenoids we've all learned are a source of trouble no matter where or what or whatever, eh?
All that machines with that type of assembly, sooner or later you have to replace the complete chassis, you know, the metal part. It's a little bushing underneath it, touching the motor, eh?
The motor
Yeah,
bushing.
you know, it's got a little bushing, metal bushing underneath it.
Yeah.
So you have to replace the chassis.
Because that wears,
Yeah,
is that
it wears,
correct?
and the motor, you know, the little stage assembly, it rubs with the wood, with the coil.
How about replacing the bushing?
No.
It's built right in,
It's
isn't
built
it?
right in. It's only about $7 for the whole.
Yeah. And 14 hours to do it?
No,
No?
takes about 15 minutes.
Oh, really?
All plug-in parts, nothing to be unsold or nothing is sold, nothing.
You got the right length.
It's already gone through about half a dozen.
Okay, did you all hear that?
If I have a old chassis, I can bring it in, show them the push.
Would you do that? Yeah.
They couldn't give me the
That's
right part,
kind of
no
important.
matter how they tried. So
The part that moves the most is the motor, and it sits on a bushing, and that wears, and apparently it allows the rotor to drop down under the stator, and of course that
So I had
causes
to switch
problems.
in there, chase the leader on.
Oh, this is all about 2,700.
There's probably like
Yeah.
2,000.
And some of the older models.
It's all the same chassis.
Just how they implemented around it.
Well, basically it's when it's
Oh, yeah, they always will
Okay, page 45. We have the introduction to the jog system. We won't spend any time on that because the whole theory of the jog or special effects or whatever you want to call them is well handled in previous literature. They'll be giving you the part numbers with which to order that information towards the end of the day. But you can spend a lot of time trying to understand exactly how they handle these special effects and the jog and so on, and it's something you can read up on your own. There's good literature on that.
The brass part, you know, sort of go down.
This part where
Yes, whereas when you have the state assembly, rubbing with the coil ring.
Okay. You want to just show that to one person, you can show it to the next and all the way down the line.
This is the part of where it's more part of assembly.
Page 46. Another little new concept. Servo. Drum air gain switching. Now, you know, by now you've noticed that we're not dealing at all with the video signal anymore. We're dealing with controls and servos and all that sort of thing. So some of these minor changes have been built into the machine to improve stability, to remove jitter, to do all sorts of things like that. And here we have the drum air amplifier. And the main change that's been here is a switch has been added, Q531. And the idea of Q531, as it states towards the bottom here, is will turn on in order to increase the amplifier gain by 10 decibels until drum lock is achieved. It's a way of having the drum speed locking occur quicker than in other models. And again, this is part of the editing type of system. You want things to happen more quickly than before. So the little switch bypasses the resistor, thereby increasing the gain by 10 dB. And theoretically, this is supposed to lock the drum that much more quickly. And the last sentence here says, please note that there is an error in the service manual on the base circuit of Q531. R633 should go to the drum lock line and not the RF switch pulse line. I guess, eh? Circle that or underline it or something so you can change that in your manual. Why would we want an RF switch pulse line going to our servo? Anyway, in order to keep servo hunting at a minimum, the stabilizing time constant of the drum error amplifier is different for record, play, and cue and review. And they give us another little diagram as to how they make a change there. And it's very simply, it's page 47. It's a switch circuit which switches in or out, just a different time constant for the two different modes. I can't see how that would create much of a problem. This allows the amplifier output voltage to change more quickly. Small change, but it all adds up to SuperBeta. Page 48, RF switching position compensation. As we explained before, that's basically for the Beta 1 playback facility. Towards the bottom, 48, we have capstan control and cue and review. In the cue and review mode, the operation of the capstan rotation detector circuit is altered. And by eliminating the capstan FG frequency doubler, the position of the noise bars on the screen will be more stable. And it gives you a little diagram there as to how that switch bypasses the frequency doubler circuit. It's a defeat switch. And tells you how that works in a few words. Capstan speed changes. During cue or review, the capstan runs much faster than during record or play, obviously. In order to have quick transitions from cue or review to playback, electrical braking action is applied to the capstan motor. The system and jog control blocks coordinate the braking action. So let's have a look at that. It's a two-step type of thing. Basically, the switch opens and eliminates the FGB pulses from entering the main servo IC. Now, we know that the pulse is there. It's necessary for the circuit to sense changes so that it can send out a correcting voltage to compensate for whatever change is there. So if we eliminate it, what's going to happen is the IC sees a massive error and produces a massive correction voltage to the capstan circuitry. Now, the trick here, of course, is that the massive correction voltage, you want it in the right direction. So if we're going from cue or review into the opposite direction, two things have to happen. And why they put this on two separate pages, I'll never know. In addition to creating a massive correction voltage, there's also a motor reverse signal, capstan reverse, which goes to the motor. So if you're going, say, in the cue direction, which is in a forward direction fast, and you want to stop at that point, the motor reverses and a very, very strong voltage is applied to try to make the motor go in the opposite direction. So you have very, very strong electrical braking on the motor, and it functions in both directions. Another sort of little thing to help the editing features and the search and so on to occur more quickly.
If the capstan speed change, the secretary also applies the low end SuperBeta, or just for the
I would say just for the 900, unless somebody can correct me on that, because it's the only sort of deck that we consider as editing. As a matter of fact, much to our unhappiness, we found that the next highest model we have, which is the 600, which is SuperBeta and Beta Hi-Fi and all that, it doesn't have the backspaced editing facility.
I found that with the other machines, when you put them into cue and review, it releases the controller, so the capstan still goes forward at a normal speed.
Ah, okay.
So it doesn't use the timing phase system that the 900 uses, which locks up the lines don't appear to move.
Yeah.
Or on the other systems, you get the noise bars run through the picture
Yeah.
at an interval. They don't lock up.
Yeah. Okay. So I would say it's only in the 900 this occurs. But strangely enough, we kind of got used to our high-end models having the backspace editing facility where you hit pause, the tape backs up and all that sort of thing. And only our 900 does that now. And we had one customer who had a 600, I think, and a 900. I'm not sure what he was feeding it with. And he says, oh, my edits are terrible. They break up at all my edit points and everything like that. And
maybe customers don't like the rainbow effect, that's why you understand.
yeah, so they'd rather have the breakup. So you have to be careful. Well, of course, you're not in sales, but I'll say be careful as to what you sell a person if he's going to do some fancy editing, because if you're editing between a 900 and a 2700 or a 2710, you'll get good clean edits. But if you do it on a 600 or a 500 or a 300, it won't. So, you know, one wonders what's happening here.
500 uses backspace, but it's not time phase. You never notice when you put it in pause, it kicks the tape back a little bit.
Sorry, on which model?
The HF 500.
In the 500?
Yeah, when you hit it in pause, it kicks the tape back, but it doesn't time it back a certain number of frames. You do get a reasonable effect.
Probably mechanical back tension.
Or use the back arm, I think, like that.
Well, if the motor goes into reverse, the real drive goes into reverse, and just kicks it back a bit.
Yeah, but it's a guessing by God type of thing, isn't
That's
it?
right.
Yeah, you can never rely on those edits. No, no. So, for proper editing, you need two 900s. Or a Super 8, yeah. Beta Hi-Fi. We're not going to go into that in any great detail because it's really no different than other systems. We have books that I'll talk to you about that you can get, which explains it in great detail.
What about
One major change, well, I should say this, the 900, well, I guess all our high-end Beta Hi-Fi sets now use basically the same system that we used in the SL5200. There were two Beta Hi-Fi systems, the one used in the 5200 and then the one developed for the 2700, was it? Two different engineering groups. They approached the problem from different point of view, and experience has shown that the system for the 5200 was superior, so they've adapted that to all our new machines. So for reading as to how it works, you read up on the Beta Hi-Fi for the 5200, which is basically what you were taught at the Beta Hi-Fi course, those of you that were here a year and a half ago or whatever it was. It's all here in the literature. It's the superior system. There's one change I bring to your attention at the bottom of page 55. It's called a multiplex sound filter. It says that on early Beta Hi-Fi models, a multiplex filter was provided to reject audio at 19 kilohertz. And that is the stereo pilot signal used in FM radio broadcasting. And if that 19 kilohertz signal is allowed to reach the noise reduction circuit, it will interpret it as high frequency audio and screw up the works. However, it's not only the 19 kilohertz we need to worry about from an FM receiver. We have to worry about our MTS 15734 signal, and we can't allow that anywhere in the place. So we have a built-in multiplex sound filter that filters out everything below 15 kilohertz. Above, sorry. Above. Yeah, it passes. The filters pass everything below that. Now, the thing to remember here, as you see on page 56, is that there's a multiplex defeat switch.
that the owner can defeat these filters if he wishes to. In other words, like it says here in the last sentence, the 15 kilohertz trap can be switched off for full fidelity recording. So that means not audio from the tuner, but from other sources, such as the CDP or whatever, that gives you broadband audio that you don't want to trap out at 15 kilohertz, that you're feeding in through separate inputs into your VCR. Because we know that our Beta Hi-Fi system is supposed to be capable up to 20,000 hertz, and if we roll it off at 15, then we're losing something. But we want to do that for any audio except something coming in from the outside. But it's a defeat switch. Multiplex filter defeat switch. We talked about the mechanical system. If you wish to take some time when we break up here to come and look at these, it's fine with me. Please do that. The hint I wanted to leave with you mechanically is that we use this tension gauge cassette, which everybody has, of course, that works on Beta. And you just rotate it in the appropriate direction by hand and read the little red arrow wherever it stops. This one is reading approximately 90 to 95 grams. What's the other one? This one will read a lot. There's no slip clutch. This one reads 60. So there is a difference between the two. They're color-coded. Okay, we'll throw this whole thing open to questions or discussions or whatever. All right, in that case, books. You may want to make a note of this. The 4 training manuals that we use for the basic Betamax course. One, servo control. And that number is ZTech 0079. From our parts department, or wherever you get your parts from, Toronto, whatever, that number will get you that particular manual. 0079. Pardon?
The tech, TECH?
TECH, yeah.
It's a new book,
They were newly written for the basic Betamax course.
Is that the one with the video set, no?
No, no. Here they are here. Blue.
Oh.
Blue means hand built in Toronto. Now, of course, you people are all experienced VCR people, technicians, so you have not received these books. The people that were in the basic course did receive them. Now, these are very valuable in that they start way back with the very earliest Betamax machines, and they describe the circuits in detail that occurred there. Then, as we moved up in models, the book tells you what was changed from the original model. Because many, many circuits are carried over the whole line. So they start at the earliest, and as we go up in models, they tell you, okay, in this model we did this, we did that, and then it'll describe the change. So they're fantastic reference books. If you pick up a model and you've got a servo problem, well, you would go to your servo basic Betamax servo control, and look in the index under model SL3000, and it says here drum phase, whatever. You turn to page 30, it'll tell you what changes were made from the original model. But then you'll say, yeah, but I don't even remember what the original one was like. So that you can go right to the front of the book, and it'll start right from sort of day one with the basic circuit. Very valuable. In fact, Lance here was in the basic VCR course, and he says that he has found these books useful.
Very useful. They're a much quicker reference than actually going to the manuals themselves.
Than the service manual.
Yeah.
Because all our changes and all our models are here. 4 books, and I'll give you all the numbers here.
What's the price for
Well, they should really charge you at least $100 each, but they're a mere $15 each.
What's the second one?
Okay. ZTech 0080. Video 81. Now, we're leaving a little early, which is okay. Some of you want to go back to work, and others want to go and sit in the pub till tomorrow or whatever it is. Some of you are here for another 2 days for the CDP course. Not many of you, but some of you.
Can you spend a couple of minutes discussing about the noise cancelling circuit using a delay line, which other formats using now? They take the first line going to a 1/3 delay, and the second line set together, and the noise is random and cancel the noise by 40%. Increasing the picture of the noise ratio is 40%.
Yeah.
And can we talk anything? What's the drawback of that?
Okay, you've described it very well. The standard noise canceling circuit is merely a feedback network where you take the noise from one line and subtract it.
So this one, the first line goes to a delay, 1/3 delay.
Yeah.
They not add up together.
No, well,
the noise is random because the noise is not made in phase.
yeah, and they meet out of phase, and in essence they cancel one another.
Yeah, you get 40% better.
Yeah.
What's the drawback of doing that?
The drawback is a lot of our detail is very high frequency information, so you cancel that too.
So you only increase the signal noise ratio.
Yeah. And that's why in the 900, that circuit is disconnected in the SuperBeta mode, because they feel they no longer need a noise canceller because our tapes are low noise tapes now. There isn't as much noise generated.
What's the signal noise, what's the dB rate for the video signal noise ratio on this one?
I don't know.
What is it?
Yeah, but that'd be off the tape, is what you just said, not what the signal of noise is in the machine.
You mean the noise generated by the machine?
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is the noise cancelling for what's coming off the tape.
Yeah.
So you're not going to put down a figure because you don't know what type of tape you're using.
Well, yeah, for playback.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So it doesn't matter what the noise is in the machine, it's going to be low, a lot lower than what's coming off the tape.
Yeah, basically, from what I understand, the noise canceller circuit was to make up for noisy tape. Noise generated by the tape, not noise recorded on the tape, but noise generated by the tape itself. And they put in the noise canceller circuit, and at least this is what they tell me, is that with the improved tapes, we have lower noise coming off the tape, so we can eliminate the noise canceller circuit and extend our high frequency response a little bit, and all this tends to add up to a better machine. So, to sum up, at the very beginning when we looked at the luminance FM center frequency shift, 800 kilohertz, At first, we thought that was the only major change in their SuperBeta machine. And now we know that that's only part of it, that there's a ton of other little changes all the way along the line which tend to make it a better machine than anything we've had before. But don't expect miracles from it, which was, when they first came out, we would get calls saying, hey, I bought one of these SuperBeta machines, and by golly, it's not a damn bit better than the picture I get off my 2700, which I just sold for $100 because I got this 900 now. How come? And, you know, if they put in a cable TV signal, they're not going to see anything better coming out of the 900 than they did the 2700.
Especially on the 13-year-old TV, 2700 on the top.
Well, yeah.
You know, so far I found it 7200 for that Beta 1 recording.
Well, Beta 1, eh?
7200, I mean.
I mean, you can't...
Oh,
The faster the tape goes, eh, the better the high-frequency response is going to be.
Beta 1 is beautiful. 7200.
Yeah, we could have made a really super Beta machine just by going back to Beta 1.
But they're reserved for industrial use.
Restricted, well, no, it's the tape time. People don't, they want the length of time on the tape. But, oh, geez, I nearly forgot. Most of you were here yesterday for the XBR. In January, we'll be having a one-day seminar on the new digital TV receiver. And the only difference between the XBR and the digital receiver, the differences start after video demodulation. Everything before that is the same. So in one day, we'll be able to cover whatever new theory there is, and there will be 3 machines that we know of that we'll have available for hands-on.
What's the date?
We don't know the exact date, but it'll be in January early,
After New Year.
after the new year. Yeah.
Is Sony on custom chips or are they using ITT chips or?
ITT chips. Yeah.
How many lines, of 10, 50, or what?
No, they're not using that system.
No, that's next generation.
Yeah.
Oh.
How was next generation?
They're using that system in Japan, but not here yet.
Multi-scanning, I think, double scanning.
Yeah, double scanning.
Double frame, yeah.
What's the big difference?
Well,
Any idea?
tell you what, we've got to build up an element of surprise and anticipation here. So. In January, you'll know all about it, mainly because I don't know myself.
Actually, we saw that the one, 3 months ago.
Oh, yeah, at the show. And the second time I saw one was when I was in Toronto just recently. They had one there, and we just fooled with it, trying to figure out how to make it run. Never mind how to fix it. It's different. I'll give you a couple of hints.
What's the big performance? Difference in performance? Did you notice it?
Video-wise, no, but a lot of changes are made in, well, first of all, in the handling of the circuits, of the signal after demodulation, like for color balance and color presets and all that sort of thing. It's not done with pots and a screwdriver anymore. It's all done digitally through the remote control that the customer uses. But there's no way he can do it because there's a service switch on the inside of the machine that you've got to take the back off first to switch. But the little controller is actually the item with which you program the digital circuitry with. And you can actually change the sweep, the geometry of your vertical and horizontal sweep with your remote control. So you sure don't want the guy to get a hold of that. Pardon?
That's a little more than standard circ.
Well, it's still circs, but just different programs, different codes.
I thought this,
Sure, I'll be over.
And of course, in addition to all the normal controls, you know, cue, review, forward, backwards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0 for channel selection, and all that, there's a little flap that opens up and you have a full typewriter keyboard there, you know, with all the letters of the alphabet and all the numbers. because part of the digital circuitry is the, they call it HMH feature of this machine, the home management helper circuit, which is a mini computer with about 80 pages capability of information in about 6 different categories, and you can program in there all kinds of information.
In French?
Well, in whatever language you want to type in, because it's written. Okay?
Can it be bilingual?
Yeah, you can put it in English. No, not Chinese. It's a normal keyboard. How all that is actually done, we don't, well, I don't know yet, but I will know. Our seminar for our factory people will be here first week in December, and then early in January we give it to you people. But they'll be on the market probably for Christmas.
Can you also have 2 channels?
No. No. Some of our competitors give you 2 pictures at the same time. Ours does not do that.
Does it process the video into a digital signal and then back catalog?
I'm not sure if they do that or not. So, we'll see you in January.